Hi Reddit, my name's Noel, and I've been holding this in for a while because honestly, I wasn't sure anyone would believe it. It's one of those situations where the people you're supposed to trust the most, your family, end up being the last people you'd want around. So a bit of background. I've been obsessed with cars practically my entire life. Not just any cars, but classic muscle cars. The kind that you hear roar from a block away and immediately know someone put blood, sweat, and money into it. For years, I was the one in the family who worked extra jobs, picked up freelance gigs, saved every penny. My parents were never particularly supportive. In fact, they had this long-standing habit of dismissing anything I wanted as childish or pointless, unless it benefited my sister, Mara. Mara has always been the favorite. The kind of favorite who never lifts a finger for herself, who's charming enough that everyone bends over backward to make sure she's comfortable. And for a long time, I accepted that as the status quo. I thought, fine, let her have the spotlight. I'll just focus on what I want. So after 4 years of relentless work, scrimping, and living on way less than I should have, I finally paid off my dream car. A sleek, deep blue 1969 Camaro SS, completely restored. I'll admit, there was a moment when I just sat in the driveway, keys in hand, listening to that engine hum, and I actually cried a little. It was my accomplishment, my reward for all those years of sacrifice. I wanted to celebrate in a way that actually included my family. Maybe for the first time they could see me succeed on my terms. I decided to plan a day out with all of them, just a casual drive along the coast, grab some food, enjoy the car together. I even made it special. I cleaned it to perfection, packed snacks, and mapped out a scenic route. So I texted my parents and Mara a few days in advance. Hey, planning to take the Camaro out this Saturday. Thought it'd be fun if we all went for a little ride. Starts around 10 a.m. Hope you guys can make it. The responses started rolling in, and this is where things went downhill. First, my dad. Not feeling it, Noel. Got work I need to catch up on. Okay, fine, he's always been distant. Then Mara. Oh, that sounds nice, but I have plans with friends. Maybe another time. Again, not surprising, but irritating. I figured my mom would at least show up. And then she called. Hi, Mom. Just wanted to confirm you and Mara are coming for the drive tomorrow, I said, trying to keep my voice upbeat. There was a long pause. Noel, I think Mara deserves this more than you. You know how hard she's had it lately. Maybe you should let her have some time in the car alone, she said, her tone like she was delivering some profound wisdom. I froze. Part of me wanted to laugh. Another part wanted to scream. I had literally worked for years for this moment, and somehow it wasn't enough. My own mother was suggesting that my achievement didn't matter, that it belonged to my sister. I tried to reason with her. Mom, this is my car. I paid for it. I wanted to share it with you all. It's not about Mara. You just don't understand, Noel. Family is about giving, not showing off. Mara has been feeling left out lately. She deserves to feel special too. You should be the bigger person and let her have this day. I hung up without saying anything else, my stomach twisting. I knew exactly what she was doing, setting me up to feel guilty, to surrender something I had fought for. It wasn't love or fairness, it was manipulation. Saturday morning came, and I pulled into the driveway, Camaro shining in the sun, all cleaned, polished, perfect. I waited and waited. No one came. No texts, no calls, nothing. It was eerily quiet, like everyone had collectively decided my happiness wasn't worth a minute of their time. I tried calling my sister, thinking maybe she'd at least meet me halfway. Hey Mara, the car's out. Even if you don't want to ride together, maybe you'd like to see it. Her response made my chest tighten. I'm busy, Noel. But thanks for thinking of me. Maybe another day. And that's when I realized something important. My family wasn't interested in celebrating my hard work. They weren't going to participate unless it fit into their narrative of who deserves what. My own victory, the thing I had poured everything into, meant nothing to them. So I decided to take the car out myself, just me and the open road. But halfway through the drive, my phone rang. It was my mom. Noel, I just thought, maybe you could reconsider. Maybe Mara really should get to enjoy it. After all, she's worked so hard dealing with, well, life, you know. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles white. The voice that should have been proud, excited, or at least supportive, was now another voice telling me I wasn't allowed to be happy, that my own desires didn't matter. It hit me like a wave. This wasn't about the car. This was every single time they had minimized me. Every argument where I was told I was too sensitive or selfish. Every holiday where Mara got the attention and I got nothing. It was all coming together in this moment, and I was suddenly furious, but also strangely calm, like I'd finally been pushed to the point where I could see the pattern clearly. I didn't answer the call. I just kept driving, letting the engine roar as if the car itself was screaming back at years of being ignored. And that's when an idea started forming in my mind, one I knew would change how they saw me forever. I drove for a while, the engine's hum a comforting companion, the coastline stretching out like an endless ribbon of possibilities. It was strange how freeing it felt, being completely alone, yet the emptiness gnawed at me. I had envisioned this day so differently. Laughter, smiles, people marveling at the car, but instead, it was just me and my thoughts. And yet, in that solitude, clarity arrived. I realized something I hadn't admitted before. I was done being the family's overlooked, invisible son. Done being the one everyone ignored until it suited them. That night, I parked the Camaro in my small apartment complex lot and sat on the hood, staring at the sky. I didn't sleep well. I was replaying every conversation, every sigh, every dismissive comment, the way they all always put Mara first. My mind kept going back to my mom's words. You should be the bigger person. I hated that phrase. I hated it because it was never about being bigger. It was about control. My mom and sister had been subtly controlling me for as long as I could remember, deciding what I deserved, when I deserved it, even shaping my dreams to suit their narrative of who I was. By the next morning, I had a plan forming, one that wasn't about shouting or arguing. I didn't need to. They had shown me how little they respected my boundaries or achievements. The goal was simple: make them see, without words, that I had succeeded and that they had nothing to do with it. But I had to be patient, slow, deliberate. I started small. Over the next week, I polished the Camaro obsessively, not just for me, but for the statement it would make. Every detail mattered: the chrome, the leather, the engine. I even recorded short videos of the car, casually posting them on social media without mentioning who I was with or where it was parked. The posts were subtle, glimpses of the interior, the engine revving, nothing flashy, just enough to show the car's quality. I could see the subtle reactions online. Friends asking who it belonged to, neighbors commenting in awe, but none of it reached my family, yet. That was the point. Then I started planting seeds in conversation, very carefully. My dad called one evening, as he sometimes did, to talk about nothing in particular. I mentioned, almost offhandedly, how much I had put into restoring the car myself. "You did all that yourself?" he asked, slightly impressed, though I caught the skepticism in his tone. "Yeah, every bolt, every detail. Took me years, but it was worth it," I said lightly. I didn't wait for praise. I just let it sit. My sister was next. She stopped by my apartment by accident a few days later, or so she claimed. She peeked at the Camaro parked outside, and her reaction was priceless. Her eyes widened. She pressed her hand to her chest like she'd just been punched, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something new: uncertainty. "It's really yours?" she asked, her voice betraying her curiosity and something else, a shadow of guilt maybe, though she masked it quickly with a smirk. "Yes," I said simply. No apologies. No explanations. Just the fact, hanging in the air. She tried to brush it off, but I could see it. She couldn't. And I realized then that the day I had wanted my family to be proud of me, to join me, had been lost, but it had opened a new door. The opportunity to finally make them feel the weight of their dismissiveness. I didn't confront my mom immediately. That would have been too easy. Instead, I waited for the perfect setup. I began inviting other friends and colleagues, people who genuinely admired the car and respected the effort I had put in, to see it, ride in it, even take it for a spin. Each time, my mom would inevitably hear about it. At first, she called with mild curiosity, almost casual. "Oh, Noel, looks like you've been busy again. Who's been helping you with the car?" I answered honestly, barely masking my pride. "Nobody, Mom. It's all me. Took a lot of patience, but it's finally done." Her pauses grew longer with each conversation, her questions becoming more pointed, as if she couldn't reconcile her mental image of me with this independent, capable version of her son. And Mara. Oh, Mara's reactions were almost theatrical. I'd hear about them later from mutual friends. The gasps, The whispered comparisons to what she had ever done, the sudden awkwardness when she realized the spotlight had shifted, even if just slightly. Then came the turning point. I got a call from my dad, one I wasn't expecting. "Noel, I saw some pictures online," he said cautiously. "That car, it's impressive." "Thanks, Dad. Took a while, but I finally finished it," I replied, letting my calm, measured tone do the work. There was a long pause. I could hear him calculating, as always. "I suppose Mara saw it too." "Yes, she did. She stopped by yesterday," I said, letting the words hang. No emotion, just facts. Another pause. Then his voice dropped slightly, almost pleading. "Well, I suppose that's good for you." I smiled quietly to myself. Not because of the praise, but because I could feel the wheels turning in their heads. The subtle panic, the realization that I had finally built something that was undeniably mine, with no influence, no help, no favoritism. They had underestimated me for years, and now, little by little, I could see the cracks forming. But I wasn't done. Oh no, this was just the beginning. The real moment, the one that would make them realize they could never diminish me again, was still coming. I just needed the right stage. And then, one evening, I got the idea, a family invitation of sorts. Not a direct confrontation, not a casual text. Something that would force them to choose, participate or be left in the dust, witnessing what they had always ignored. I drafted the message carefully. It needed to sound casual, even friendly, but loaded with subtle pressure. I typed it out, erased it, rewrote it 3 times, then finally hit send. "Hey, thinking of taking the Camaro out tomorrow morning for a scenic drive along the coast. Thought it'd be nice if you guys joined. Starts at 10 a.m. Would love to see you there." I waited and waited. The silence was delicious. They didn't even answer immediately. I imagined my mom's face as she read it, Mara's reaction, my dad's hesitation. I could almost feel the mental gymnastics starting. It was exactly the kind of tension I had been building toward, the prelude to the moment where everything would shift. But then my phone rang. It was my mom. "Noel, I don't think you understand. Maybe you should reconsider. Maybe Mara really should go instead. She's been feeling overlooked lately," she said, her voice sweet and insistent, as if she was guiding me toward the right decision. Something inside me snapped, but in a way that was controlled, precise, and deliberate. I didn't answer. Not yet. I wanted her to stew, to imagine what I would do, to let her feel the frustration and disbelief she had so often forced on me. I didn't sleep much that night. The Camaro sat in the driveway like a silent sentinel, gleaming under the streetlights, and I kept picturing every possible reaction my family could have the next morning. Part of me was excited, part of me was anxious. Not about what they would do to me, but about what I would make them feel. Morning arrived in a quiet, almost eerie way. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the street. I stepped outside, feeling the cool breeze brush past me, and ran my hand over the car. Everything was perfect. The leather smelled new, the engine's chrome glinted in the early light, and the hum of the machine promised speed and power. I could practically hear my mom's voice in my head, telling me Mara deserved it more, and it only made me more determined. I sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, and let it purr. Then I called my sister, casually. I wanted her to feel that tug of hesitation, that sense that she could join, but might miss something if she didn't. "Noel, is that you?" Mara's voice was cautious, a mix of curiosity and guardedness. "Hey, just getting ready for a drive. You busy this morning?" I asked, trying to sound casual. There was a pause. "Well, I mean, I could maybe swing by. But, I have plans later." I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. "It's really just a short drive. Scenic route, grab some breakfast along the coast. No pressure." She hesitated again. "I'll think about it." I hung up. That hesitation was exactly what I wanted. A crack in the armor. I didn't call my parents. I wanted them to hear about Mara's uncertainty from her, or better yet, to discover it on their own. The silence from them was deliciously unsettling. By mid-morning, the car was spotless, the engine warmed up, and I felt the anticipation like a tangible weight in the air. Finally, around 9:30, Mara showed up. She walked slowly up the driveway, her posture perfect, her smile carefully crafted. But there was tension behind it, a subtle nervousness I couldn't miss. I waved her over. "Hey, Mara. Glad you decided to come." My tone was calm, measured, but there was an edge to it. She hesitated by the door, glancing around. Wow, the car. It's impressive, she said, words clipped, forced, like she was trying to mask something deeper. Thanks. Hop in, I said. I opened the door for her, the gesture casual but deliberate. I wanted to show her this was my world, my accomplishment, my domain. She slid in, stiffly. I could feel her eyes flicking over every detail, the leather seats, the polished dashboard, the meticulous engine work. We drove in silence for a few minutes, and then she finally spoke. I didn't realize you did all this by yourself. I glanced at her, expression neutral. I did. Every bolt, every panel. Took a lot of patience. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I could practically see her recalculating everything she thought she knew about me. She had always assumed I was just the quiet, background brother, the one who worked hard but never really made waves. But here I was, in this car she had always envied, and she had no answers. We drove along the coastline, the wind whipping past the windows, the hum of the engine filling the silence between us. I could see her trying to formulate questions, but they didn't come. Every glance she gave me was a mix of awe and disbelief. And in the back of my mind, I knew that moment. Her realization that I had succeeded on my own was just the beginning. We stopped at a small cafe along the route. I didn't say much as we got out, just let her absorb the experience. Other patrons glanced at the car, murmurs of admiration floating around us, and I saw the tension in Mara's shoulders. She wanted the attention, wanted the spotlight, but here it was being shared on my terms. And she couldn't control it. After breakfast, I suggested continuing the drive, taking a slightly longer route to see more of the coast. She agreed, but reluctantly. Her tone was clipped, her movements precise, and I noticed every micro-expression. The hesitation before getting back in the car, the careful way she buckled her seatbelt, as if preparing for a storm she didn't yet understand. We drove for another hour, mostly in silence. I let the engine roar a few times, not recklessly, but enough to remind her that this was mine. Every glance she cast my way carried a mix of envy and something else, recognition. Recognition that I had accomplished what they had all tried to diminish for years. Then, the text came. I had been waiting for it. My mom. Short, sharp, full of subtle venom disguised as concern. Noelle, maybe this is too much. Maybe you should let Mara drive for a bit. She deserves to feel included. Don't make her feel left out. I read it carefully, savored the words. She was trying to guilt me. Tried to make me feel responsible for their sense of fairness, their warped definition of family love. But I didn't respond. Not immediately. I wanted her to stew, to imagine what I might do next, to feel the uncertainty she had so often placed on me. Mara, meanwhile, was quiet, eyes forward, glancing at her phone occasionally. I knew she had seen the text too, and I could see the conflict in her expression. She wanted permission from Mom, wanted guidance, as if she couldn't navigate the moment without approval. And that's when I realized I had the upper hand. Completely. For the first time in my life, the balance of power had shifted. By the time we looped back toward the city, I could feel Mara's composure cracking. She tried small talk, casual questions about the engine, the restoration process, but I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how I had done all this without any help, without her parents swooping in to assist or control. Every glance at me was weighted, measuring, recalculating. Then, as we turned onto a quieter street, I made the move. I slowed down, parked by the side of the road overlooking the water, and turned to her. You see this, Mara? All of it. The car, the work, the effort. This isn't just a machine. This is every year I've been told I wasn't enough, that I had to defer to you, that my accomplishments didn't matter. I said quietly, carefully, letting each word sink in. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words came. I could see her panic beneath the carefully maintained surface. She hadn't expected this. None of them had. And in that moment, I knew the seeds I had been planting, months of subtle social cues, of measured pride, of independent success, were ready to bloom. We sat there for a long while, the quiet of the coast settling around us. Mara wasn't saying much, just watching the water, but I could feel the storm brewing behind her calm exterior. I didn't rush her. That was part of the plan. Part of the satisfaction came from letting them stew, from making them confront the reality they had ignored for years. I was capable, independent, and entirely unbending. By the time we drove back toward the city, the tension had thickened into something almost tangible. Mara was fidgeting, glancing at her phone, likely texting my mom. I imagined the conversation perfectly. "Mom, he's really done it." I didn't expect. Whatever she wrote, my mom's response would probably be filled with a mix of astonishment and resentment, a combination they had perfected over decades of family manipulation. Once we got home, I parked the Camaro in the driveway, stepped out, and let Mara take in the view. She was quiet again, but her eyes betrayed her. She was calculating, trying to figure out how I had managed it, how I had done what she always assumed she could do better or faster. But I wasn't done yet. "Sit down," I said calmly, gesturing toward the bench in the front yard. She hesitated but complied, her posture stiff. "I want you to understand something, Mara. Not to brag, not to rub it in, but to make sure you finally realize that this isn't about favoritism, about luck, or about mom and dad giving someone a hand. This," I patted the hood of the Camaro, "is about me. And it's about every single time you and everyone else told me I wasn't good enough." Her mouth opened, then closed. She shifted uncomfortably. "Noelle, no. Listen," I interrupted gently, but firmly. "You don't get to speak yet. You need to hear this all the way through." I told her everything. Every slight, every comparison, every time my parents had praised her while dismissing me. I spoke slowly, deliberately, letting each word land. I didn't shout. I didn't exaggerate. I simply laid out the facts, the patterns, the unfairness. And I could see it in her eyes, the shock, the frustration, the realization that she had benefited from a system built on my silence and submission. She tried to argue a few times, soft protests about how she had worked hard too, but I didn't let her derail the moment. "No, Mara, you've never had to fight to be seen. You've never had to prove yourself against the constant dismissal of everyone around you. You were given the spotlight, and I had to fight for every inch. This car, this moment, is mine. Not because mom or dad said I could have it, not because you needed it, but because I earned it. Every bolt, every hour, every dollar." By the time I finished, she was quiet. Truly quiet. That silence was the first crack in her armor, the first indication that she was starting to grasp how completely she had underestimated me. Then, I set the stage for the next move. I told her casually, almost offhandedly, that I had a small gathering planned the next day. A few friends, people who had followed the restoration process, people who would appreciate the car as much as I did. "I'd love for you to be there too," I said. "It's going to be a nice way to see everything come together." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "So just everyone else, huh?" I smiled faintly. "No, it's not like that. It's just, well, you know how mom likes to comment on things, and dad tends to overreact sometimes. I thought it might be more comfortable with just a few people who understand what went into this." She hesitated, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. I knew my mom would find out about this. I could already hear the thoughts running through her mind. He didn't ask me for approval. He didn't let me control it. That was the beauty of it. By keeping the event small, I controlled the narrative, and my family had no choice but to realize that my achievements were mine, and theirs had nothing to do with it. Sure enough, by late evening, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Noelle, I heard you're having people over. You should reconsider. Mara should be included. It isn't right otherwise." I stared at it for a moment, savoring the words. She was panicking. She had no control, no leverage, no ability to dictate how I celebrated my own accomplishment. I didn't respond. Not yet. The next morning, I prepared everything meticulously. The Camaro gleamed in the driveway, the drinks and snacks laid out neatly, and my friends started arriving, genuinely excited to see the car. Mara showed up again, a little later than planned, but not empty-handed. She had told mom she was going. I could see the tension radiating off her as she stepped out of the house. Then the real moment came. My mom appeared, out of breath, looking frantic. "Noelle, why didn't you wait? Why didn't you ask me if this was okay? Mara deserves to be part of this." I didn't rise to her bait. I stayed calm, letting the silence between us fill the space. "Mom, this is something I wanted to do for myself. If you're upset, that's something you'll have to deal with." Her face turned pale. The realization hit her slowly, like a wave crashing over the shore. She had no control. None. All the manipulations, all the guilt trips, all the favoritism. It didn't matter anymore. She had underestimated me, and now she could see it in plain sight. Mara stood by the car, fidgeting, glancing between me and Mom, realizing that she had been complicit in the same system. And I saw the fear, the panic, the jealousy creeping in. They had no idea that I had planned every step of this revenge meticulously, not to hurt them physically, but to make them feel the consequences of their neglect and favoritism. Then I spoke. Everyone, take a look. This is the result of years of effort, focus, and doing it my way. Not anyone else's way. Mine. And for the first time, I get to share it on my terms. My friends' reactions were perfect. Awe, admiration, excitement. The contrast was stark. My parents' faces were priceless. My mom's jaw tightened, Mara's shoulders stiffened, and my dad's expression was somewhere between disbelief and forced pride. And in that moment, I realized that the shift had fully begun. They were seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time in their lives. And it felt exquisite. I left them standing there, stunned, while I handed the keys to a friend for a quick spin, laughing and chatting. Mara looked at me, eyes wide, a mix of envy and respect forming reluctantly on her face. I spent the next day planning the final stage carefully. This wasn't going to be a shout, a confrontation, or even a lecture. It was going to be a demonstration, a moment that would make my family feel the full weight of years of dismissal and favoritism. I sent out a single, casual message to my parents. Hey, taking the Camaro out for a quick drive this afternoon. Thought you might want to see it before it goes back in storage. Starts around 3. I knew exactly how they would interpret it. Mom would think I was inviting her to supervise or approve. Mara would assume she had to compete for attention, and Dad would probably show up late, trying to maintain some semblance of authority. At 3 p.m. sharp, the driveway was ready. The Camaro shone under the sunlight like a trophy, meticulously polished, engine humming softly. I waited, watching the street, and sure enough, the family started to arrive. Mom pulled up first, face tight with suspicion and barely disguised irritation. Mara followed, walking briskly, almost glancing past me, as if she expected some kind of trap. Dad arrived last, muttering about being busy but clearly curious about the car. I greeted them calmly. Glad you could all make it. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Noelle, you should have waited. Mara deserves to see this properly. It's only fair. I didn't rise to the bait. I simply nodded and gestured toward the car. Go ahead. Take a look. Mara stepped forward first, eyes darting over every detail. I watched her face slowly shift from casual interest to disbelief. She had always assumed that I was the quiet one, the kid who worked hard but never made waves. Now she could see, really see, that the car, every gleaming inch of it, was mine. My work, my money, my accomplishment. And no one had a hand in it but me. Mom's face darkened as she circled the Camaro, running a finger over the hood like she was trying to leave her mark, assert some ownership. It didn't work. This wasn't her achievement. She had tried to control my life for years, guilt trips and favoritism woven into every interaction, and yet here I stood, unbending, enjoying the fruit of my labor without her input. Dad hovered near the rear of the car, arms crossed, clearly trying to appear unimpressed but failing. Every glance he cast betrayed his disbelief. You really did all this yourself? He asked, almost as if testing whether I'd lie. Yes, I said simply, letting the single word carry the weight of years of ignored effort. I handed Mara the keys. Go ahead. Take it for a spin if you want. Feel what it's like. Her eyes widened, and she hesitated. This was the moment I had been waiting for. She had always been the favorite, always allowed to claim victories she barely earned. Now she had a chance to experience something she hadn't earned, and it was mine to give. She got in cautiously. I watched her expression the entire time. The excitement she tried to hide, the uncertainty she couldn't mask, and the realization that she didn't control this moment. I did. As she drove slowly down the street, trying not to seem clumsy, I turned to my mom and dad. Mom's face was tight, every muscle rigid with frustration and disbelief. She had been trying for years to manipulate, control, and dictate what I deserved. Now she had no leverage. Nothing. Dad looked like he was recalculating everything he thought he knew about me. I didn't expect, he stammered. You didn't expect me to succeed on my own, I said quietly, letting the words hang in the air. And you didn't expect me to take control of my life without needing anyone to approve or guide me. That's the difference. The rest of the afternoon played out like a silent reckoning. Mara returned from the drive, flushed, a mix of exhilaration and frustration on her face. Mom tried to comment, tried to reassert control, but I simply ignored it, leaving her words to hang unanswered in the air. Dad muttered awkwardly about stopping by the local mechanic to admire the engine, but it was hollow. He had no place here. By the time the sun began to set, I had packed up the snacks, secured the car, and locked the doors. My family stood in the driveway, glancing between themselves and me, their faces a mixture of envy, disbelief, and regret. They had finally seen what they had never acknowledged. I could succeed on my own, and their favoritism, their manipulation, their constant undermining, they had failed to stop me. I left them there, standing in stunned silence, and walked inside. I didn't say goodbye, didn't try to smooth things over. I didn't forgive them. They had spent years trying to control me, belittling my achievements, and it was over. I had won. The Camaro sat in the driveway, my pride on display, a permanent reminder of my independence and success. That night, I sat in my apartment, listening to the quiet hum of the city outside. My family hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't tried to mend anything, and I didn't expect them to. Because after all those years of favoritism, manipulation, and dismissiveness, they had nothing left to give me. And now, they finally understood that I didn't need them to feel validated. The situation was clear. I had taken control, they had been forced to witness it, and they could no longer dismiss me. Mara was quiet, Mom and Dad were humbled, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely untouchable. I had proven myself, on my terms, and there was no going back. It wasn't revenge in the sense of punishment, it was a revelation. A slow, deliberate, undeniable lesson. I mattered, my effort mattered, and I was finally free of their favoritism and manipulation. And for the first time, I could truly enjoy my success without guilt, without compromise, without anyone standing in the way. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.